Everyone, the meeting is now called to order. My name is Melanie Williams, and I'm the chair of the HART Operations and Safety Committee. Welcome to the December 21st, 2020 Operations and Safety Committee workshop that is conducted in a virtual format as we were unable to secure the quorum that is required for a hybrid meeting. Please note that since there is no quorum present, we are able to only receive the presentations from staff, discuss them, and ask for clarifications from staff. However, we are unable to take a vote or form recommendations for the full board. For those of you that were able to join, thank you, and we will do our best to work through these actions and move them forward. All the items presented at today's workshop will be placed on the January 4th, 2021 regular board agenda for consideration and action by the full board of directors. Now we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please look at the screens of your on your devices. An image of the flag is displayed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Staff. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Staff, will you please do the roll call at this time? Is that you, Ms. Arthur?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Williams?
Present.
Director Kemp? Director McLean?
Present.
Director Overman? Director Schisler?
Present.
And then Director Myers?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arthur. HART General Counsel Julia Mandel will announce into the record the rules for participation.
Thank you, and happy holidays to you all. Thank you for your participation in this virtual workshop. Please keep your devices and phones muted when not speaking. Muting the sound and microphone on your device helps avoid feedback. You may enable the video camera on your device, but please discontinue all personal conversations for the duration of the meeting. Note that the quality of your video will depend on your internet connection. Please follow along with a copy of the meeting agenda and materials sent via email. All presentations will be shared on the screen while presented. Roll call will be taken for attendance and voting by HART staff, except that in this instance we cannot take a vote. Quorum and voting results will be announced. There is an opportunity for members of the public who pre-registered with HART staff to provide comments. However, there was nobody who pre-registered. During the meeting, please wait until the chair asks for comments or questions from the committee members for each agenda item and as the meeting progresses through the agenda. When you want to provide a comment or ask a question, please signal that you want to speak by activating the hand button, which is in the white circle next to your name. The hand will turn blue when activated. The names of raised hands will be called in order for the chair to acknowledge, then participants may unmute their device and speak. Please speak your name before your comment. Presenters, please note that all presentations are controlled by HART staff. Ensure that you state your name, title, company, organization for the record. Please say next slide when needed, and staff will progress through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mandel. Thank you for going over those detailed notes, considering we don't have a quorum. And it's my understanding that we do not have anyone listed for public comment, and I just want to pause and just check that again with you, Ms. Arthur.
That is correct, Committee Chair. There was no one pre-registered for public comment at this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. So this concludes the public input section of the meeting. Our General Counsel will read the closing statement into the record.
Oh, I apologize. I don't have that closing statement. Can staff send that to me?
The closing statement just states for those that do provide public comment to follow along with the rest of the meeting on YouTube.
Since we don't have public comment, we won't need that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, everyone. And as we see that we have our first presentation, and the presentations on the monthly safety and security update, September and October 2020. Always so excited to hear from Mr. Colin Malloy, Director of Safety. You are recognized.
Thank you, and this is Colin Malloy. As the chair mentioned, I'm the Director of Safety and Security. I am happy to present, we're actually combining 2 months from both September and October so that we're sharing with the committee a full breakdown on both the accidents and incidents. Next slide. So again, we're going to do our accident analysis. Then we're going to talk about security events, so updating the committee on verbal physical assaults, and just as important, what action items HART has continued to move forward with to ensure safety and security for both the riding public and our employees. And then, of course, any questions that the committee may have. Next slide. So this slide, as you know, we've been trying to do some more trend analysis for the committee. So we broke down the accidents from June through October. In talking about October, our largest accident, again, was the fixed object or mirror collisions. These are generally low dollar value, low impact to the agency, but we do track that because anytime we have any type of event, we're doing that follow-up training and we're looking for ways that we can reduce the likelihood from that happening again. The second largest type of event that we saw in October was third-party vehicles hitting HART. And those were what we think of as non-preventable accidents where our operator did generally everything in their power probably to reduce the likelihood of that event occurring. Followed by rear ends, which represents 12%. And then we did see about 16% of our total accidents that were preventable in terms of maybe the bus operator needs some coaching or some additional refresher training on how to reduce the likelihood of that. So again, in October, we've continued really the trend that we've seen throughout where the fixed objects has been the largest event that we've had, followed by the non-preventable accidents. One of the things I would like to point out to the committee is that if we go back to April of this year when we started giving these presentations, one of the things we mentioned is that, year to year we've seen a reduction in the total number of accidents that we've had that we've been showing the last couple of months, and that's really been because our level of service has reduced. So as we reduced our level of service to roughly 50% or Sunday level, our accident ratio went down quite a bit as well. In November, I just bring this up to the committee in November, we reinstated, close to 90 to 95% of our service. So it would not be unlikely for us to see starting in December as we add up all of those accidents and incidents that we may see an increase in the total number. Now, that does not represent any type of the agency operating less safe or less secure or operators doing anything outside of our current trends. But because our level of service and the number of total vehicles we have out on the road, it's not unlikely that we might see a shift up moving forward in January. So I just want to put that out there as we looked at the COVID type of service. Now that we're restoring service, we might see a little bit of movement in our accident incidents, and we're kind of planning for that forecast. Same thing on our paratransit side. It has been relatively stable in terms of the trends that we've seen from June through October. Next slide. So talking about our security events, we want to make sure that this committee is fully up to speed on all of the type of security events that we've seen. In October and September, we had no physical altercations. So we had no reported events where an operator was physically assaulted. And I'm happy to state from January through October of this year, we do not have any actual reported cases of an operator being physically assaulted or harmed through that period of time. We are seeing, these verbal altercations, though, and I want to make sure that we're sharing with you guys the number of verbal altercations and what we're seeing out there. So in the month of September, we had 16 total verbal altercations. Roughly 9 of those were more of offensive language, but 7 of them were threatening language. So again, we're seeing these some of these threatening language events take place. In October, we had 14. In October, 2 of those were threatening language and 12 were offensive language. Again, and I talk about this in some of the action items, but what we're seeing in terms of these verbal altercations, a lot of times there is a mental health component to it. And I'll talk about some of the things we're doing with TPD, but as we've investigated what a large majority of these verbal altercations, there has been incidents where we're Baker acting or trespassing these individuals, but they're unfortunately the common theme that we see is a lot of times there's a mental health component to some of these interactions. Not all, but it is the one trend that we do see. Next slide.
Question, Chair. Director McLean. Hey, Colin, on that last slide, if you could go back one, and hopefully you don't mind me interrupting in the middle here.
No problem, sir.
How do these numbers stack up against pre-COVID? And what I'm getting at is, you mentioned with COVID, we're about at 50% ridership. How do these numbers stack up pre-COVID? Are they double? Are they overall increasing? If you can give me some kind of
So I would say the verbal altercations have actually been kind of steady. We generally have a very safe and secure system, and they represent such a low percentage. But we do want to make sure we're communicating to the board that there are events where these take place. So the verbal altercations, the numbers are very similar to what we saw even prior to COVID. So I couldn't say that there's really currently a correlation in terms of these verbal assaults related to COVID. We just haven't seen that. And again, with physical altercations, we've had 0, which is a decrease, but we were experiencing maybe 1 or less than 1, maybe 1.7, I think, the previous year in terms of physical altercations. So the physical altercations are low, but I would say in terms of the verbal altercations, those are kind of staying steady even to our pre-COVID levels.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I wanted to share again what HART is doing, to show you that, as we share this data, we're looking at the data, but we're also looking at what can we do in terms of reducing the likelihood of an accident or a security event taking place. So again, I'm re-emphasizing it. Anytime there is an event within this agency, whether it's an accident or a security event, operations staff and safety staff are meeting specifically with that person, whether it's a counseling session, whether it's refresher training, on every single type of event that we have. We feel it's very, very important that we give the operator the tools to make sure that that's not occurring moving forward, and any assistance they may need as they move ahead. Again, we're continuing on our COVID-19 protocols, the Hurricane Emergency Management Coordination, as well as our COOP. One of the things since the last time we've met, there was an activation for our hurricane. The county's EOC reached out to HART in terms of supporting as they were concerned about the tropical storm and hurricane that came into the area. Staff responded very, very well in a short period of time. That storm had the trajectory kind of jumped around, but our maintenance staff, our operations staff did a phenomenal job, as well as HR and the entire organization, of responding to the county's request for assistance during that time. We also, on the streetcar side, we had a very successful interlock testing with the Federal Railroad Administration. So that deals with the CSX interlock between our streetcar and the freight rail system. The FRA does inspections and testing on an annual and every 5 years to make sure that all of our safety protocols are in place. I'm happy to report that the streetcar team did a phenomenal job. The waiver that we have has been continued for the full lifespan. Dispatch did well, our maintenance team. So it's very, very just something I want to recognize of. Those are the small things that individuals within this organization do day in and day out, and getting the full waiver for the 5 years is a reflection of that commitment. Also, as a follow-up, the last time we spoke, we shared with this committee about the carjacking incident down in South County, and one of the action items from the committee was to make sure that we had not only an internal debrief, but also an external debrief with law enforcement. And I'm happy to report we met with the district commander and the responding officer down in the South County zone in Wamama where that event took place, reviewed the video, reviewed our protocols, spoke with them about any lessons learned and actions, and we came away with some really positive feedback from Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office as well as our team. I'd like to thank our interim CEO, Ruthie Reyes Burkhart, also participated in that meeting, as well as safety and operations staff. So just wanted to close that loop. I believe it was one of the directions from both the chair and Director Schizler, and I wanted to just assure you that we did complete that, and it was a very positive meeting. One of the things that when I talked about the mental health component is that we are partnering with TPD, specifically downtown along the Marion Transitway and throughout the city, with some of the activities that Mayor Castor is looking at doing at some of the homeless population. One of the things we see is that a lot of non-HART passengers that are on some of our facilities or county facilities, we want to look at how do we get assistance to kind of move them along from both a customer service experience as well as our employees' interactions with them. And we're partnering with TPD to be community partners in addressing this community issue. One of the commitments of that was on November 16th, we actually did an on-site assessment with Captain Owens, who heads up District 3, and that's something we're going to be continuing to do on a monthly basis, reinforcing that relationship between HART and TPD on this issue. Also in November, HART was asked to speak for APTA's mid-year safety and security seminar on the best practices in terms of COVID and the pandemic plan that we have shared throughout the industry. The Transportation Research Board has also asked HART to participate due to the leadership in terms of the barriers that both this committee and the HART Board of Directors pushed through. So that's being recognized at both the national level in terms of being best practices here at HART. Internally, the Ops Department and Transportation did a blitz November 17th and 18th, which was very successful. We had members of operations management, members of training, members of safety were actually during rollout, morning pullout. They were also at the transit centers, but kind of feet to the streets, if you know what I mean, of getting out there, talking to our employees, giving information, doing safety promotion, talking about different compliance things, as well as making sure that they see our support for what they do day in and day out. November 30th through December 4th, the HART Safety Department actually had some onboard emergency refresher training with bus operators. This was done in response to some of the action items from the that debrief of the Wamama incident. So we wanted to make sure that we continue that training with the bus operators on the lessons learned. So, one second.
Colin, are you still on the line?
Yeah, my apologies. My screen went blank. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Again, sorry for the delay. We're continuing with our safety committees. One of the things I also wanted to share was that to share with the committee is that with the Super Bowl coming up HART has been working with the Transportation Security Administration on preparing for that from a security side. We were very happy to host a Exis tabletop exercise. And this Exis tabletop exercise actually brought in representatives from Hillsborough County EOC, the Sheriff's Office, TPD's Emergency Management, as well as TPD Rescue, regional players such as TSA and FDOT, as well as internal HART staff representing all departments from maintenance, operations, streetcar, safety, security, customer service, paratransit. Really great event. We went through different scenarios that could possibly affect transportation as it relates to the Super Bowl. And I'm very pleased to report it was a very successful event. In addition to the tabletop exercise, TSA has also partnered with HART to do First Observer Plus training with our supervisors. And HART has continued the commitment in that partnership with TSA as the transit agency in a host Super Bowl city to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to prepare from it on a security side. Also, in December, I wanted to make sure to share with this committee as well. HART has been working with Hillsborough County EOC on the COVID-19 vaccination discussions. We participated in a planning workshop with the Florida Department of Health in terms of making sure that we are in those discussions as the state plan and the county's execution of how COVID-19 vaccinations are distributed, that we're doing everything in our power to make sure that that is a successful rollout in this county, as well as making sure that our critical employees and our essential employees are in that discussion in terms of vaccination and what is the most appropriate steps moving forward. Our internal leadership team has met as we kind of internally develop our program for when that time would come that critical infrastructure and essential employees would be on kind of that waiting list for the COVID-19 vaccine. There are still things that we are working out on that, but we wanted to make sure that we share with the committee that we are engaged in the discussion at the county level. Our partnerships are very, very strong, and we're working through to make sure that HART has a voice at the table. Next slide. And Chair, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll open up for questions at this point.
Hi, Gil Schuss. I got a couple of a comment and a question. The question first. Good report, Mr. Malloy. Question though, what is the status? And you may not know the answer from Ms. Birkin, but what's the current status of the improved radio systems that might have helped with this South County issue, an event that occurred? What's the status of those at this point?
If I may, this is Ruthie Reyes-Burkhardt. So we are still exploring the opportunities, Director Schisler. We have met with the county's providers at their radio system in discussions of what opportunities there may be there. We also met with our a support entity that works with our current system in order to identify what the best options are going to be for the organization. It is a longer term project that has to move through several phases in terms of evaluation, assessment, and then discovery of what is going to be our best solution for overall, because it is connected to, excuse me, it is also connected to our ORPCAD system, which is how we sort of track and monitor our vehicles. So there's a larger component there that has to be integrated if we were to move our current system onto a new platform. It has to all be able to sort of integrate at some point. So that is being led by our maintenance and our technology innovation division. They have been meeting also with our PMO office and operations and safety to discuss, what options that we have. And so that is part of the program plan, if you will, for the year to establish where we are, bring back a solution and hopefully get an install at some point. So, but there are some good opportunities out there. We did hear from those two different entities from the county's radio system, which would get us on with other first responders if we were to go down that road. And then, of course, there's the local solution, which we just had a high-level meeting last week in order not to violate any procurement rules, but just to hear, if anything, what kind of solutions are out there. So
okay.
the team is looking into it.
Okay, that's good, because that might have been a mitigating factor in the event that did occur. So we want to make sure that that stays on everybody's radar as a pretty hot topic. Second comment, or another comment, has any, I don't know how to ask this either, has any feedback come from the frontline employees as to their feeling they're protected? Is there an improvement in the employee feeling of safety? I know for a while there, after the two major incidents we had, there was a bit of a broad scale concern by our drivers and so forth, that of fear. And I just wanted to see if there's any gauge, or if there's any way we can someday gauge that they feel that we're doing everything that we can to keep them safe and to provide a safe environment for them. And then lastly, is there anything, I'm not sure if we can do this or not, if there's anything that we can do as a board to offer our support to getting more, the drivers and the frontline people, the employees, elevated in the COVID vaccine program. That we can, a letter to the CDC or whoever, or the state, whoever's a controlling factor in this. I think that, I know I'd be willing to sign it a red hot minute, and I think all the other members of the board would be, because we need our people vaccinated. We need them vaccinated as quickly as we can. So if there's any opportunity to do that, I'll step for it. I'll stop there.
Answering your first question, sir, we do engage with the union on a regular basis in terms of, after every event, we're meeting with the employee. On Wednesdays, the operations team, has a number of meetings with the union. On Thursday, as we're reviewing, is with safety. The safety committees that we have are all opportunities that we're gauging and getting their feedback. One of the things I would point to, though, on more of a formal basis, on the HART success plan, under quarter 2, one of the things safety and security put out there is that we are conducting a bus operator survey. And so we can formalize for those exact things that you talked about, is we want to make sure that we're getting employees' feedback of, are the mitigations we're putting in place, are they working? Should we maybe go this direction or that direction? So we put that in. We felt so important about it that we put it as part of our success plan in terms of quarter 2 of conducting that bus operator safety and security survey, because we've learned, to your point, engaging with them produces the best results on moving and enhancing safety and security. On the second part, in terms of COVID-19 and the right now, the distribution plan is really dictated a lot by Tallahassee and the state in terms of the different levels. Critical infrastructure, which HART is part of, is really being put into phase 2. As currently kind of described in our initial discussion. So as they look at healthcare workers, vulnerable populations, and those individuals are really the first group and first responders. Then critical infrastructure comes in that phase 2, and that's kind of where we're at in terms of our planning purposes. But I think there'd be great opportunities, and Lorena Hardwick, I know our Director of Government Affairs, has been working in FDOT and FPTA for that exact same thing of ensuring that transit employees such as HART, are given the opportunity as a priority for this vaccination.
Yes, thank you, Colin. This is Chair and Committee. This is Lorena Hardwick, Government Relations with HART. Yes, to Colin's point, we have drafted up a letter that was sent to the governor in the last, I guess it was probably end of last week. So we will be more than happy to share that letter that was sent. And just as Colin said, we are looking at being placed in phase 2, the way that Tallahassee is structuring it. So we want to make sure that transit workers are included in that phase, and so that our bus operators have that opportunity. So we are more than happy to share that letter, and then whatever capacity you have to advocate for that for HART. And like Colin said, Florida Public Transportation Association has been advocating, most of the transit agencies, and APTA as well, called every single governor's office across the nation to advocate for transit workers.
Thank you, Ms. Hartwood, and good questions, Director Schussler. I believe I see Commissioner Oberman. Your hand is raised. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sorry I checked in a few minutes late. Just to confirm what has been reported, when we discussed the emergency plan and plannings last week at the BOCC meeting, in the rollout phases that were described, I confirmed that the HART's transit workers were in that second phase, or right behind our first responders when it comes to our healthcare workers, as well as the nursing homes and our most vulnerable. So they did, within our local health department, confirm that transit workers were in that queue. Of course, it never hurts to have everybody on board to confirm that everybody's on the same page as far as the priority. And I'm really thankful, Lorena, for you sending the letter to the governor to urge how important it is that our transit workers, especially our operators, are protected, because they are so vulnerable. But I just wanted to confirm that we did hear, and I did get confirmation that the transit agency was in that second phase at the meeting last week from the health department. So they're and Timothy Dudley of the EOC. So keep your fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Oberman. I do have a couple of questions, Colin, and if you don't mind, verbal altercation. You talked about there being 9, 10 plus on average a month, and threatening. We still have just as many as we've probably had. One is far too many, but I appreciate the work that you guys are doing on training the employees and de-escalating the situation. I'm just curious as to the actions that are taken with the offenders. I know that you mentioned they were some mental issues, but are there actions being taken with those offenders to ensure they understand the expectation as for riding the bus and maintaining safety with the other patrons as well as the bus driver?
Yes. So HART, we will, anytime an operator is threatened, whether verbally or physically, HART pushes that they are prosecuted to the fullest extent and they are charged to the full extent. So when whether it's Hillsborough County, City of Temple Terrace, or Tampa Police Department, our supervisors are there supporting our operators to ensure that those people are charged to the fullest extent as that law enforcement officer is within their power to do, and we trespass them from our system based on that. It does get a little bit when there is this mental health component. So if someone is Baker acted, they might not have a trespass. We have some of the actions we've put in, from our experience in the past year is, we're tracking all of our trespass. We're tracking all the people that are trespassed. We're communicating with law enforcement on that. We're even, as you may recall, we're placing a binder with the photo of the person that's been trespassed in our bus operators lounge. And that was one of the great suggestions we got from our operators, is they wanted that information. So we do follow up on every single one of these events, but we do have to defer to law enforcement in terms of what level they do charge or prosecute. But HART's position is always to prosecute and to ask for the largest charge that the police officer is able to provide.
Okay, thank you. Is there any type of indicator when they get on the bus once we understand the person may have had some type of issue, so that the driver is aware or maintains some sensitivity and awareness around that situation?
Yes, we do a lot of training on this issue, and we also have protocols in place. So as the operator, if they do have this kind of interaction, they reach out to the control center, and then we have supervisors as well as security that's able to assist them. Simply put, we do not want any operator to escalate anything. So we want to make sure they put their safety first of not escalating. But we do have a whole team of operations supervisors that will respond, and they will engage in that discussion, and then law enforcement would be there as well.
Okay, thank you. Last question. The Safety Blitz is a phenomenal opportunity to get feedback from the drivers, as well as hear firsthand some of the feedback they're sharing. Is it possible when you conduct your Safety Blitzes, if you could alert the Operations and Safety Committee, we may have the opportunity to help support or hear firsthand from them, and then they also see the appreciation we have for them as well.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yes, that's a really great idea. Yes, I think we can definitely make that happen, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions or any hands raised at this point. I just want to verify before we move on to the next subject.
That is correct. There is no more hands raised.
All right. Thank you so much, Colin, for your overview.
Director Williams, if I may, I wanted to just also remind this board that while we do so appreciate Colin and all of his efforts and all of his work that he's done all year long, Colin has decided to leave us. He is moving on in his career, and we are super proud of the work that he has done here at HART, and want to thank him, obviously, for all of his service, all of his great efforts, professionalism, and knowledge that he brought to this organization, but also to congratulate him on his new career. And he's not leaving the state, but he's definitely leaving HART.
Thank you. I have a nice little note I wrote to make sure on behalf of the board that we do thank Colin. You've done phenomenal work. Your follow-through is just immaculate. Your level of detail is necessary because of the role that you play in the safety of all employees. And the other call out I wanted to make mention of your level of professionalism and your partnerships, your detail analysis, and then also never losing sight of the people as we're going through the exercises and understanding what's necessary. So I do want to thank you for all of your leadership, as well as your partnership and keeping employees safe as first priority. And you represent HART very well. And on behalf of the HART Board of Directors, we want to say thank you for the job you've done, and congratulations as well.
Thank you, Colin. Good luck.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you. That really does mean a lot, and it's a bittersweet because there are so many amazing people in this community, and specifically here at HART, and that's something I'll never forget. And very thankful for the opportunities and the support of our leadership here at HART, as well as the board of directors in this committee. So thank you for making this such a meaningful experience and such a powerful time in my life. I'm very, very appreciative.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the agenda on our committee actions. Number 5, again, as a reminder, we are able only to receive the presentation from staff, discuss them, and ask for clarifications from staff. However, we are unable to take a vote or form a recommendation for the full board. All the items presented at today's workshop will be placed on January 4th, 2021 regular board agenda for consideration and action by the full board of directors. The first action item is to authorize the interim CEO to purchase up to 11 Chevrolet 4500 cutaway type vans, mobility lifts from Florida Transportation Systems Incorporated, in a not to exceed amount of $865,005. Scott Drainville, Deputy Director of Maintenance, you are recognized to present this action.
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. Scott Drainville, Deputy Chief of Maintenance and Facilities. And yes, today we're asking the committee members to review the action and authorizing the interim chief executive officer to purchase up to 11 Chevrolet 4500 cutaway type vans with mobility lifts and a not to exceed amount of $865,005. And to give a little background, HART appropriated $3,925,000 of its FY21 capital budget for 43 vans that were ordered in FY20. Those vans were to be received and paid for first quarter of FY21. As of Friday, 18 of those 43 vans have been delivered, and that includes the purchase of 2 additional vans funded by the county. The price of the 43 vans were less than originally estimated, with an average price per vehicle of $78,628 for a total spend of $3,380,995. Because the actual cost of these vans was less than budgeted, we have a remaining available funding of $544,005, which will provide a purchase up to 7 additional paratransit vans.
Mr. Drainville?
Yes.
Is there a presentation that should be reflected on the screen as you're going over the documents or the presentation?
I don't have a presentation.
Okay, I just wanted to verify. Excuse my interruption. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
No problem. Yes, and back in January of 2020, I also applied for the FY20 Section 5310 grant, the Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Capital Assistance Program, which is administered by FDOT. And earlier this month, on December 9th, FDOT provided us notice of award for the total project cost of $321,000. So this award will fund up to 4 additional vehicles, bringing that total to 11 vehicles we could order. But now that we received those 43 vans or in the process, that will only leave 14 vans left on our replacement plan. So if approved, this would leave only 3 remaining vans that have met their useful life. And then keep in mind, we do have another action item in this meeting for a grant opportunity, which was the same grant opportunity that we were just awarded, the 5310. And those will replace the 2017 fleet by end of 2022. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Madam Chair, I don't see any hands raised.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you so much. So we will move this action item to the full board. Thank you, Mr. Drainville.
Thank you.
The next action item is action item B. This will be presented by Greg Bracken, Director of Paratransit and Flex Services Operations ADA, and he'll present on the action title, authorization to sign and submit the state FY 2022 grant applications and supporting documents for the Florida Department of Transportation funding under the Federal Transit Administration Section 5310 for operating funds for the HART Plus taxi voucher program and capital funds to purchase paratransit vehicles and to accept the grant. Wow, that was a mouthful. So full year ending 2022. So Greg, I'll hand it over to you at this time for your presentation.
Sure, and this is just exactly what Scott said, a follow-up to what we were just awarded the first of the month. We apply for this grant on a yearly basis, and this year we've stepped it up a little after some consultation with the Department of Transportation FDOT folks. HART is requesting a grant funding in the amount of $500,000 to support the continued operation of the HART Plus Taxi Voucher Program in FY22. If this project is selected for funding, funds would become available October 1st of 2021. For operating projects, FDOT would provide 50% of the money. HART is required to match the other. So it'd be $500,000 from FDOT and $500,000 from HART. The HART match will be provided by the general funds, including passenger fares and ad valorem tax revenues. And with that request, we're also asking for grant funding in the amount of $765,000 to purchase up 10 paratransit vehicles for use in the HART Plus service. For capital projects, FTDA would provide 80% or $680,000. FDOT would provide 10%, $85,000, and HART is required to provide additional 10% of $85,000. The HART match would be provided through the general funds, including the passenger fares and the ad valorem tax revenue. And as Scott said, we are almost up to speed on our replacement of our paratransit vehicles. This project is scheduled for release in 2022, and we have the 2017s that would be coming to the end of their useful life. And this is to keep up with our plan to keep our vehicles up to the current service levels and not fall behind on our paratransit vehicles. And that would be it. And just ask if we should take it to the full board for approval in January.
Thank you, Mr. Bracken. I'll open it up for comments or questions for staff at this time.
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Bracken, for the presentation. Next, John Edmondson, Director of Procurement and Contracts Administration. You are recognized to present the action item C, authorization of the interim chief executive officer to modify contract number VC 000546 awarded to Vector Media Transit, LLC for the provision of traditional on-vehicle transit advertising services to include vehicles currently utilized for streetcar services and to extend the expiration date of the contract to December 31st, 2021. You are recognized, Mr. Edmonds, for the combined action item of vendor for both activities.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, HART is asking for authorization for the interim chief executive officer to modify our current contract with Vector Media Transit. They are the provider of our on-vehicle advertising services. Basically, they're the folks that do the vehicle wraps for all of our fixed route services, or fixed route service vehicles, excuse me. The current contract that provides the similar service with for the streetcar vehicles is a contract held between the City of Tampa and THS Ford and Vector Media, same vendor, but obviously a different signatory on the other end. That contract is set to expire at the end of this year. HART is effectively the contract manager for that contract. We direct all of the activities of the vendor. We review and approve all of the advertising materials, et cetera, et cetera. The primary difference is that for that particular contract, all of the revenue that's generated is forwarded to the city, and the city performs its own accounting services. What we're recommending at this time is, since we are effectively the contract manager, it does make a lot more operational sense to bring that service into a HART contract, and the most effective way to manage that contract is to combine it with our current on-vehicle advertising service as well. So that gives us one contract vendor, one contract vehicle to manage all of the advertising services for all of our rolling stock vehicles across all modes of service. It's a very efficient way of doing that. In addition to that, we also have for vehicle advertising, audio advertisements that run on each fixed route vehicle. That contract is provided by a different contract vendor, and that contract is set to expire at the end of 2021. Again, to align all of those vehicle advertising services into a single contract document or contract award, preferably for a single vendor, we would also like to ask permission to extend the Vector Media contract. So once we've incorporated all the streetcar tasks into that contract, we would also like to extend that Vector Media contract to expire at the end of December. That will give the procurement department the opportunity to work with our marketing department to make sure that we have a solicitation ready to go that looks to award a single contract to a single advertising vendor to handle all vehicle advertising. That's the print as well as the audio advertising for both internal and inside the vehicle, interior and exterior of the vehicle. So we would like to ask at this time permission to pass this on to the full board for their review and approval at the next available meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Edmondson. Are there any comments or questions by the committee members or staff?
No, ma'am, I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you. Seeing that we do not have a quorum, committee action item A, B for the fiscal year 2022, C, with some of the extension with taking action to combine the contract as well as extend on a contract that's due to expire in 2021. We will all forward them to the board for further consideration and the review of approval. With that, that concludes all of the action items in the regular business for today. Is there any old business? Any new business? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a wonderfully safe, happy holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
holiday, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.